that we can get people confident and optimistic about, and I'd love to talk more about that tonight. But let me just say this to close. There is so much at stake for all of our communities, big and small, and so much at stake for our state. But this election is about the future of our country. As mayor, I've been proud to stand up to Donald Trump as they bullied sanctuary cities. I've been proud to push and pass ordinances to protect a woman's right to choose as they work to defund Planned Parenthood. And I've been proud to adopt a climate action plan because as they erase climate change from the websites of the federal government, we have to take up the leadership mantle at the local level. So I hope to earn your support. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I went to law school a long time ago, and Shirley Beisowitz was the first woman tenured law professor at the University of Connecticut School of Law, and it has been always my pleasure to watch Susan's career and know how proud her mother would have been, because she was a woman who supported all of us young women as we entered the legal profession when it was a new idea. So you're following in a great tradition, and we're very happy to have you here.
Well, thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. My name is Susan Beisowitz, and I am exploring a run for governor. People ask me all the time, why would I do that? Well, I'll tell you that I grew up on a potato farm in Middletown, Connecticut, and my dad, who will be turning 96 on March 3rd, still lives on that beautiful farm. And if it's work that doesn't involve lifting 50-pound bags of potatoes, then I'm all in. And I am very proud to be here because our state is at a very critical juncture. And so we need to choose our next leader very carefully. And I think our future governor needs to have a couple of types of experience. First, it's important that our next governor have government experience, because we see what happens when we send someone to Washington who lacked that basic credential. We need someone who has experience dealing with our state legislature, because our next governor will be called upon to make budgets and to work in a collaborative way with our legislature. And as Secretary of the State, I had the honor of working with our legislature in a bipartisan way to transform our system of voting, to make it more fair and secure. And I also worked with our United States Congress to get $33 million to fund that important initiative. And I think that experience is important, along with the wonderful opportunity that I had to register hundreds of thousands of Connecticut businesses, help thousands of Connecticut businesses grow great paying jobs. We are not going to be able to tax our way out or cut our way out of this big mess that we're in. We have to grow our way out. And what I also believe our next governor needs is heavy-duty private sector business experience. And I have spent the last 7 years helping more than 80 homegrown companies in Connecticut get access to $80 million in capital and grow thousands of great paying jobs. And that has given me an insight into how we can move our economy forward and grow jobs and keep our young people and our seniors in our beautiful state. And I look forward to sharing that vision of how we can move our state forward over the course of this forum. Thank you so much, and I look forward to your questions.
So Sean Connolly is with us tonight, and a new face to many of us, and very anxious to hear what you have to say about your ideas for Connecticut.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Audrey and Larry and Kevin Creed. Thank you all for being here and for inviting me here. I'm honored to be here tonight with a great partner who's got tremendous energy, passion, and compassion for our state. My wife, Carol, is here with me, and I'm proud that Carol's here tonight. And I know we have many veterans who are here tonight, men and women who served our great state and served our great country, and I welcome all of you as our distinguished guests tonight as well. You know, I am Sean Conley, and I love Connecticut. And I'm running for governor, and I am a declared candidate running for governor for 3 simple reasons. The first is I do love Connecticut. And that's why Carol and I chose to move back here to my home state to raise our 2 boys, Sean and Brennan, who are 11 and 8 years old, after I served on active duty in the Army for 7+ years and worked in Washington, D.C. at an international law firm. Second, opportunity. We want Sean and Brendan and all our children and grandchildren to have the same opportunity that the last 3 generations of my family enjoyed right here in Connecticut. And third is, I know we can do it. I've called our current economic climate a crisis, and I believe it is, but I believe it's a solvable crisis. And we can change the narrative if we, with the right long-term plan and with the right collaborative, results-driven leadership, we can change the story here in Connecticut to write the new story of the Connecticut opportunity. So my love for our state runs deep. It's deeply rooted in my family's story of opportunity, with my grandparents coming from Ireland, getting jobs in the 1940s at Pratt & Whitney as a groundskeeper and as a factory worker. My father, who came 52 years ago last month from Ireland as well, starting and operating his own small landscaping business right here in Connecticut. And my own story. I'm the youngest of 4 children, growing up in public schools in East Hartford, getting my first job as a dishwasher at Beefsteak Charlie's in East Hartford. Getting promoted to busboy, though, by the way. But too many people have expressed that that opportunity here in Connecticut, that my grandparents had, that my father has, doesn't exist anymore. And that's why I'm running for governor, to ensure and expand the Connecticut opportunity for everyone here in Connecticut, no matter who you are. And that's why I've released my long-term economic plan. I think the only candidate to do so on my website at connolly4ct.com, because it's that important. It's about more jobs, better paying jobs. And you know, I bring something unique to the table. I bring a 3-tiered experience that is unique among the candidates. That's my military experience. That's my corporate business experience as the Global Ethics and Compliance Officer at Pratt & Whitney, where my grandfather was once the groundskeeper. And a senior executive running a state agency, the Department of Veterans Affairs, working with the legislature, working with sister state agencies like Mental Health and Addiction Services, Labor, and Housing. And so I'm ready to put that to work at the next level for our great state. I know we can do it. I know it's going to take that collaborative, results-driven leadership, but we can do it together. Thank you very much.
Mayor Gannon, welcome. Up.
Thank you. Thank you. We got here before the storm. I don't want to take credit for today's good weather, because as mayors we should get blamed for everything bad happens, so when the storm comes. But it's my pleasure to be here. I have been mayor now for 6 terms, mayor of Bridgeport. But my campaign is about building a new Connecticut that works for everyone. And people that feel, not just a few, people that feel maybe they don't have a voice, because government now, especially in Connecticut with our fiscal crisis, is unable to fulfill the commitments that are needed to be made, both with local government and with all of our residents. People that are struggling for an opportunity for a decent job to raise their families, hopefully to put them in a position so their children go to a good school and have as good as, hopefully, a better future than we had growing up. And I've been doing that since age 32. I was first elected as mayor of Bridgeport. That city, a great city, Connecticut's largest city, was literally bankrupt. I mean, to the point where they stopped at some points honoring city paychecks, and businesses were leaving, taking with them thousands of jobs. I worked hard to bring people together with an approach, simply put, to get it done by problem solving with smarter people than me. And we're able to put Bridgeport back on track and in the right direction. And then, of course, maybe not of course, but some people noted it. They said, Jesus, this is from where it had been and where it had gotten, had been tremendous progress. And to some extent, I look forward to continuing that progress. But you need to know part of the story as well. I made some terrible mistakes. I broke the law and paid a terrible, terrible price for it. When I came back, wondering whether, with lessons learned even, whether I could still be honored to make, gain the public trust again, the sanction of that public trust, and to serve again, maybe with a second chance. And I moved forward and was able to do that. The people of Bridgeport honored me, and over the past 2 years, I committed to a greater level of accountability and transparency, and to get things done, but make the city a better place. And I think by objective standards, we've been able to do that. But things have changed in the last year and a half. Our city's become more dependent. We see with state and fiscal crisis, and then who knows what's coming out of Washington and the White House these days. The fiscal crisis in Connecticut is the biggest challenge we face as citizens, and I'd like to say as Democrats. If we're able to create, project a credible vision for the things that we hold dear, whether it's a good economy for good paying jobs, good quality education for our children, no matter what school district they're in, to rebuild a crumbling infrastructure, good quality, affordable health care, or common sense gun laws like I've been fighting for 2 decades. We need to straighten out, put back on track the state's fiscal situation, similar to what we did in Bridgeport. Bring a skill set to that, bring experience to that. Some would say uniquely positioned, but all good and bad, my life experiences, public service. Look forward to answering questions about me, about these topics, and about us as a Democratic Party, and the ability to project the vision and hope for Connecticut to continue to lead. Thank you so much.
We welcome Jonathan Harris, still from West Hartford, right?
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach? Thank you for being here. My wife Lucy and I are here with you tonight. This is what it's about. The mayor talked about the energy, people involved, activity, action on the ground with good candidates, and you see we have them. We can win this. We can do this. And I come here, by the way, at the north end of Hartford. My parents, David and Merle, actually helped Howard Klevenoff, your former law partner, get elected in 1968. They were involved in the community, starting the Blue Hill Civic Association, keeping the neighborhood together, focusing on the schools, on what was happening on the streets as a community, which is why it was strange that after Lucy and I and our son decided to venture down this road and run for governor, that when I went to my mother and I looked at her, she gave me this look of concern that I hadn't seen since I was 17 years old and I had just done something really stupid. And she said, why? I said, because it's time to step up. You taught me this. I've always done this. This is the time. We have real challenges in the state. Emperor has no clothes. Just got a call a couple months ago. Family. They're aging. They can't find the long-term care services they need. They have an aging child with severe disabilities. They don't have a place to put the child independently to live. This is a failure of our progressive values of our service delivery. My son Spencer, he's not here tonight, our son graduated UConn. Why is it that he wants to stay in the state of Connecticut, but his best opportunities are in Boston or New York? This is something that we have to address. Well, I am the proven progressive problem solver. You can see, we have a lot of talent up here, even Paul. We have a lot of talent up here, but guess what? I am the only candidate that has the public and private sector experience. I get results. Whether it was as mayor of West Hartford, as counsel to the House Democrats, as deputy treasurer of the state, as commissioner of the Consumer Protection, or in my private sector as a lawyer representing working families and small businesses. Or as Consumer Protection Commissioner, actually, or excuse me, a business owner. I was regulated by Consumer Protection, then I became the regulator. I've seen things from both sides. There is a pathway out of here. I'd like to talk to you about that tonight, about the 3 pathways that I think that center around education, jobs, and growth to make our state strong.
Thank you.
Trying to save you some time.
And we welcome Ned Lamont, who is known to us and was a candidate before, but I hope that you can join the chorus and give us your thoughts and vision about your candidacy.
Well, thank you, Judge, and good evening, everybody. And it's great to be back with a lot of friends I recognize from a long time. My friends from the Winstead Bookstore, the most politically inspired bookstore in all of Winstead and beyond. And I love coming back to Torrington. I love the murals. I think that's amazing. I like the hydroponic fish. I'm learning more about them. And I love Michelle Cook and everything she does fighting for you every day. She's incredibly effective. Now, pick up where Michelle left off. She said, this is a race that says a lot about values. And you've got some great candidates here. We got to know each other pretty well. We travel around together. Good Democrats. And I can tell you, the Republicans are gunning for this state. They want to turn this into a red state. But this is not Trump country. This is Connecticut values, and that's what we're going to fight for, and that's what your next governor is going to fight for. You know, we believe that wherever your place of origin, whatever your background, you're welcomed here, and that's what makes Connecticut strong, and that's what makes America strong. Look, I'm going to be a fighter for women every day. I don't like the tone of what's going on in Washington, D.C. And let me tell you, I come out of the business world, a little different background than these guys. When I talk about paid family leave, it's not just the right thing to do. I'll tell CBIA it's the smart thing to do. Because more and more of our families are single-parent families, more and more of them are single moms, and they can't work without paid family leave. And we need each and every one of our folks working and give them that opportunity. That's what I'll be fighting for. Look, I know something about creating jobs, and if the Republicans want to say it's all about jobs and Connecticut's been slow on that, bring it on. I've been creating jobs my whole life. But I also believe that we have to have a fairer economy, and I'll be fighting for that every day. And that does include a $15 minimum wage that raises up everybody and builds out our middle class in a serious way, and the right to organize going forward. You've got to think long and hard about which of us up here gives the Democrats the best chance to win, and who has the executive experience that helps us navigate through some very complicated waters. I would tell you, I think the candidate with the best chance to win probably hasn't been in Hartford for the last 10 or 20 years, brings a fresh perspective, has a different background, represents a real fresh change for how we're doing business in Connecticut. I've done that my whole life. In my business, I took on the cable TV industry. We provided a better service at lower cost. And we could use a little bit of that entrepreneurial zip at Hartford when it comes to reducing the costs and allowing us to make sure we provide the services that we've guaranteed our people. I'd like an opportunity to talk further as the night goes on and ask us details about how we wade our way through this fiscal crisis and give people the confidence this is a state where they want to be, where they want to grow and expand. Thank you very much.
Well, we have a lot to cover, and it occurred to me that it probably made some sense to change up the questions a little bit. I want to let you know that we're receiving questions on Facebook and Twitter, and if anyone in the audience has a question, there are plain old cards to write on in the old-fashioned sense. But Sean, based on your experience, I have had conversations with people, and I know the Bar Association has a veterans assistance program, and I've represented pro bono a veteran who was going through an eviction just recently. But I have a dear friend who now lives in California, but he's a veteran, very concerned about the veteran suicide rate and homelessness among veterans. We're facing budget crises in every aspect of our lives. We're worried about how we're going to support the arts. In terms of your experience, how do you balance what we are obligated to do for the veterans who have served us and with all of the burdens that are being placed on the state budget?
Great question, and thank you. And that's something that we had to do while I was Commissioner of Connecticut's Department of Veterans Affairs, and that is be creative, be innovative, be collaborative, and partner with other organizations to bring to bear the services that our veterans deserve. As I was Commissioner, our budget went down each year. Our resources went down each year. And when I arrived to Rocky Hill, where we have a temporary housing facility for our veterans, we had veterans that were living there for 10, 15, 20, some 30 or more years. And I said, we can do better. They were living in a temporary housing facility. And so it wasn't with additional budget, but it was with partnering with nonprofit organizations to bring more case support management to bear for our veterans, to help them identify their goals and objectives, and to help them remove the barriers to achieving them. Partnering with other agencies, like mental health addiction services, like housing, and like labor. And we were able to, by doing that, reduce the census by 40%, which meant more veterans getting to permanent housing, more veterans getting their educational and fiscal affairs in order. And you know, as a state, the governor took some great leadership in the homelessness issue when it comes to veterans. While I was commissioner and part of that team, we were able to end functionally end homelessness among veterans. It doesn't mean that you won't find veterans who are homeless. What it does mean is there's a process in place so that veterans can get on the path to housing once they are identified. And so it is being innovative. It is taking out the non-value added pieces to the puzzle like we did at DBA, bringing my military and corporate experience to bear to bring lean initiatives, doing things more efficiently. And so that's what we're going to have to do across state government at every state agency.
Ned, what do you think about that question?
I think that fundamentally, we have to get this state growing again. And that's how we'll be able to find the resources we need to take care of our veterans, take care of homelessness, take care of social services. And I think it's tough though, because I come out of the business world, and I'll tell you the one thing I hear from the business guys when it comes to expanding in the state. They don't want a handout, they don't want to give away, they don't want a tax subsidy. They want the state of Connecticut just to take care of what government's supposed to do. Come up with an honestly balanced budget that invests in the future and doesn't borrow from the future, and get it on time so that Torrington can know what their budget's going to be and can plan accordingly. They want us to invest in the future. They want us to have a transportation system that makes us really the gateway to New England again. And that gives them the confidence to grow and expand. And that's what we got to do, is make sure they have that confidence. And most importantly, I've been in education much of my life. I taught at a high school in Bridgeport. I've been a professor at Central Connecticut State, and for the last 8 years I've been working like heck to get business and labor together. The number one thing I hear from every single business leader is make sure we have an education system. We have a great workforce, but they're beginning to retire. We want to make sure people are trained for the 13,000 advanced manufacturing jobs that are going begging. That's what I'm going to do as your next governor.
Thank you. And Luke, you are also a veteran, but you also understand the business community's interest in reducing the prison population because of the great expense. And I know that you were involved in the governor's conference on second chances. With respect to responding to what we are hearing from the business community, give us your thoughts about saving money in ways that also use our human capital in a way that's compassionate and productive.
Sure. I think criminal justice reform is one of those issues where doing the right thing also happens to save you money. This is actually the first issue that I got personally passionate about. When I was in college, I tutored at the Whaley Avenue Jail in New Haven, GED courses and writing courses. And I became convinced then that we were deeply misguided in our criminal justice approach. We were relying way too much on incarceration, especially for nonviolent crimes. And now serve as mayor of a city that in many ways was devastated by that, by the war on drugs, by the over-reliance on incarceration, by what that did to families and neighborhoods and communities. I was proud to be part of that push for the Second Chance Society reform, but at the local level, we've really focused on trying to make the private sector a part of this effort, because the single most important thing to deal with criminal justice reform, I think, is actually successful reentry. In all of our communities, but certainly in the one that I serve, we have thousands of residents who come back having done their time. Many of them want to get on the right track, and they've got this insurmountable barrier. So we were able to get grant funding from a private source to set up a reentry center where those who are coming back to our community can get the support they need to navigate this world they're not familiar with, get back on the track to a job. And we're trying to get private businesses to think differently about what it means to give somebody a second chance. I talked to a lot of employers who do, and every single one says, not every time it works, but when it does, you find the most hardworking, loyal employees you ever got because they know how hard it was to get that chance.
Thanks. I don't know if, Susan, you had any additional thoughts on either of those questions.
So I absolutely do. On the veterans issue, as I mentioned, my dad is going to be turning 96, and he is a World War II veteran. My Aunt Mary, who's turning 97, God bless her, in June, is also a World War II veteran. And as Secretary of the State, I had the incredible honor of traveling around the state to say thank you town by town to our World War II and Korean War veterans. And I just can't tell you what an incredibly enriching experience that was, because World War II veterans, until recently, really didn't talk about their experiences, and that was an incredible thing. And as Secretary of the State, I had the opportunity to create a small business unit in the Secretary of the State's office to help veteran-owned, women-owned, and minority-owned businesses. And as a lawyer, it's been a great privilege to help veteran-owned businesses get access to some of the programs like the Small Business Express program that helps small businesses grow and create great paying jobs in Connecticut. And as governor, I would focus on those homegrown businesses and not on corporate welfare. Thank you.
Joe, you talked about, a new beginning really for Connecticut, and the Senate House Democrats announced that if the United States Supreme Court voted in favor of legalizing sports gambling in New Jersey, that we might proceed in that direction. And I know there's discussion about a casino in Bridgeport. There are people that think raising money on the backs of people who sometimes compromise their lives, their livelihood in gambling is not really the way to raise revenue. They've been talking about tolls, which obviously would affect at least the 95 corridor, if not other roads in the state of Connecticut. And there is also discussion about legalizing and taxing marijuana based on the experience in Colorado for the mounds of money that the state has now to provide services for people. When we talk about increasing revenue, what would be your position as governor on legislation that would legalize gambling?
Sure. Can I touch on the veterans question and the second chance question
Sure,
briefly
go ahead.
too?
Go ahead.
First, let me just say this. This is a matter of, and a lot more I'd like to say about things that we need to do in honoring our veterans. I think the best way to support, express, and exercise our democracy is to vote. I'd ask you to do that. But the best way to honor our democracy is to honor our veterans, whether it's these two gentlemen here or anyone who served. I don't think we can do more than that. We try and do that. I try and do it in my capacity as mayor of the city with Homes for the Brave and other things. But I don't think there's enough that we can do to honor them just for their service. Secondly, with Second Chance, is another area where I think we need to recognize that there's thousands, at least 1,000 for each of our major cities, of citizens returning every year. We're looking for just an opportunity for a second chance. And this affects not just that individual, but families. They're obviously someone's son or daughter, or maybe mother or father, brother or sister, and a whole thing. So job opportunities, attention for mental health assistance or homelessness are challenges we face every day. So we need to do more than that. I think there's a whole discussion about that I'll save for another question. On gambling, or if it means jobs, and myself and Mayor Hartford New Haven have united on this issue, because it creates an opportunity for some 6,000 jobs, for people opportunities for jobs, and we need it badly in Connecticut. And understand, as I do too, I'm not much of a gambler or a proponent of the expansion of gambling, but I think that debate, for better or for worse, has kind of passed us by. And if it creates jobs and creates revenue for the state of Connecticut and can help us get out of this budget situation so that we can provide the basic services that we need, I think we need to take a good hard look at it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Ned, do you have a comment about whether or not we should legalize gambling if the United States Supreme Court permits it in New Jersey?
I think the idea that gambling and taxing marijuana, these are ideas that have to stand and fall on their own merits. What we really need to do is fundamentally reform how we raise revenues in this state so we have a more reliable and predictable revenue stream, so we don't sit around going through a budget crisis every 2 years and our budget's out of whack again within 6 months. That makes it impossible to do business in this state. So specifically to your question, look, I'd be willing to look at all those ideas. As Joe said, it does represent, $700 million of investment in Bridgeport. It does represent real jobs. I'm willing to look at legalization of marijuana. I'm willing to legalize marijuana. I think it just creates an incredible disrespect for the law the way we're doing it now. But these are not revenue questions. What you need is somebody who goes to Hartford, is willing to make the big changes necessary to get this state on track. And I would look fundamentally at how we raise revenues in this state. I would look at not just raising rates, because I don't think that's the way we do it, expanding the base of the sales tax, looking at electronic tolling, so we can start investing in jobs, investing in transportation, thousands of good paying jobs. That's the type of vision you need from a governor to give people a sense of where we're going to be, and that's how we get the state back on track again.
And so I think it really is the question from the floor, and it is the question on everybody's minds. I mean, Connecticut, I don't believe, got into this crisis, as Joe Scarborough thinks, just because GE left the state of Connecticut. I think it is much more profound than that. But I'm going to, starting with Luke, I'm going to ask each candidate, what specific steps will you take to get us out of this financial crisis, even though it is long in making? What specifically are you going to do?
Sure. This is the single most important question for our state. And the first thing I would say is we're going to have tough times for a little while. And anybody who's telling you it's not going to be tough and tight for a little while is not telling you the truth. The question that we face as a state is, over the next 4 years, can we lay the path to growth so that over the next 5, 10, 15, we get the state really getting on the path to strength? I think there are 3 key things we've got to do. On transportation, I support tolls. I think we're crazy to be one of the only states on the Eastern Seaboard that doesn't have them. I would also dedicate as much of that revenue as possible to rail. If you can put New Haven within an hour or an hour and 10 minutes of New York, it's a game changer for the entire state. And if you then focus on commuter lines, on the Danbury line, Waterbury line, up to Springfield, and along the shoreline east, it opens up growth possibilities for the entire state, and it unlocks those huge growing metro areas on either side of us in New York, Boston, where people are getting priced out every single day. And by the way, I'm open to the casino conversation, but if you had a rail line like that, you wouldn't need a casino to see growth and jobs in Bridgeport. The second thing is education. I know I'm running out of time. We have tens of thousands of jobs in advanced manufacturing. We're not preparing our kids for those jobs. We got to start all the way down to vocational technical schools, our community colleges, and our state colleges and universities to make sure our programs are aligned. And lastly, I do believe we need to make sure we've got strong, vibrant cities, not at the expense of suburbs and towns, but because you've got to have those vibrant hubs if you're going to compete for talent and for jobs in this economy today.
Susan.
So the question is, how do we get out of this fiscal mess that we're in? And here are the specific things that would be my priorities. Number one, pass a budget that is fair, balanced, and has bipartisan support, and do it early and in a collaborative way, because the people of Connecticut expect that people we send to Hartford, the legislature and the governor, just to do their job, because that's what they have to do when they go to work every day. That's number one, because businesses won't want to come from out of state if our government just doesn't work and it's not predictable. And businesses here aren't going to be able to plan and grow unless we do that one simple thing. Second, we need to invest in our infrastructure. We need to join the other 42 states in the country that have tolls. And we need to use that revenue when we pass the transportation lockbox to invest in good paying construction and union jobs that will grow our economy. Last thing we can do to uplift every family in the state, pass pay equity so that women can make dollar for dollar what men make in our state. It's simple. Do what Delaware and Massachusetts have done. Prohibit employers from asking what you made in your last job, because that institutionalizes discrimination against women and people of color. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is the question of the evening. This is the question of this campaign, and this is why I got into this race, to put the laser focus on our state's economy that it deserves. And I've launched my economic plan, as I mentioned, at conley4ct.com, and I'll run through just a few of the ideas that I talk about in that plan, which I've written down and published in January. First is our current state government. Our current state government operations and revamping, meaning going agency by agency, just like we did at the Department of Veterans Affairs, and finding ways to run them more efficiently, more effectively, and yes, on reduced budgets and on reduced resources. We need to go agency by agency. The relationship between state government and our municipalities. Yes, we're going to have to develop those relationships further. We're going to have to recognize that there will be less municipal aid to go around for our cities and our towns all across the state, and find ways among each other, among our towns and cities, to be more effective, to reduce duplicated efforts, to scale and merge activities, and so we're going to have to do that. But that's not going to be enough. We do have to prepare for the future. We do have to make investments now on a long-term plan to move us forward. Investments in business, small, medium-sized, and large. Investments in transportation. Yes, tolls, but that's not going to be enough. We need a Connecticut infrastructure bank to pair state-contributed equity with private capital debt. You know, today we heard about railway in Shoreline East, additional costs at reduced services. That's the wrong way to go. That's going to put more people on the streets that are already unsafe. And so we need to continue that. Tourism is another area where we need to continue investments. Tomorrow they'll be debating increased hospital tax or hotel tax, and we need to stop that. We need to encourage people to come to our state. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Having a round of applause. Like having, with Bridgeport, the state's largest city, I balanced from, as I mentioned before, from bankruptcy, 12 budgets, from deficits to sometimes modest, sometimes more than modest surpluses. With proportional deficits larger than the state of Connecticut is facing now. But to try and tell you, any of us, in a minute, how we're going to fix a $2 billion multiple-year state budget with challenges with fixed costs, I think would be short-sighted. I can tell you this: I've dealt with and challenged with some degree of success all the same issues on a local level in the state's largest city that we're facing with the budget crisis on a state level. I've done it successfully, and we're able to approach it with the same type of, hopefully, problem-solving and experience that can produce what I think is critically essential as the question dictates. We don't put our state budget back on track. Those things that are so important to us to deliver as even basic services, the ability to count on state government, all the things that are important to us won't exist. So I bring that to the table with 30 seconds left to go. Thanks.
Your Honor, I think I might have been inadvertently passed in the first round, and given that the next governor needs to speak out, I'm speaking out.
Okay.
So I don't know if I
What do you
can.
want, double down?
I'll take, yeah, I'll, because I can fit that into what I was doing. So, but thank you very much, I appreciate that. So let me tell you what I did. West Hartford was in the midst of a recession and fiscal crisis back in 2001. The Republicans, the so-called fiscal conservatives, never wanting to even smoothly raise taxes, had spent on our fund balance, didn't fund retiree health care, did a lot of other funky things that put us on the watch list for the bond rating agencies, having to make pension payments for the first time in a while. In the midst of that, we had no fire contract because they wouldn't bring people together. We all of a sudden had a need for a third middle school. We brought everybody together, labor, management, business, civic groups, and we resolved the problems. We reinvented our government to focus on the essential services, to preserve the quality of our schools, to preserve our senior services, our front yard services. We focused our government and made it happen. In the midst of that, we actually made a settlement with the firefighters, the people protecting us, that moved the firefighters to a 21st century model to better protect us, save the taxpayers money,